Hello everyone, today we're going to be going over the January 2025 English Language Arts or ELA Regents Exam. In this video, we're going to be focusing on part 1, which are the first 24 multiple choice questions. This video is a part of a bigger series where I'm going to go over each one of these 24 multiple choice questions. In this video, we're going to be focusing on reading comprehension passage A, which is the fiction passage. In the description, you'll find the videos that go over passage B, which is going to be the poem, and passage C, which is going to be the non-fiction text. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start off with number 1, which is a part of passage A. I'm going to go ahead and read this text out loud and annotate it. For those of you that don't want to hear me read and just want the review of the questions, you guys can skip ahead in the video. I've included a timestamp as to when I actually start going over the questions. But for everyone that's still watching and wants to hear me read, I pay attention to two things before I start reading this passage. The first thing is the title. It's called The Great Silence. And the second part I pay attention to is this italics portion right here, or this blurb. Essentially, it gives you more information about the text before you read it. So it says that in this work of fiction, the narrator is a parrot who reveals its view of human attempts to communicate with intelligent species in outer space. So we know here this is a fiction text. It's not real, but it's going to be narrated by a parrot, which is pretty interesting. Right, so let's go ahead and let's read it. It says that the humans use Arecibo. All right, first of all, why does that word have a number on it? Well, that's a footnote, okay? That gives you more context on what that word is, or it gives you a definition. So we know that Arecibo is a former space observatory located in Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Okay, so this is a space observatory. So the humans use the space observatory to look for extraterrestrial intelligence, meaning that aliens, pretty much. Extraterrestrial means life that is outside of the Earth. Their desire to make a connection is so strong that they've created an ear capable of hearing across the universe. And this is talking again about the observatory. But I and my fellow parrots are right here. Why aren't they interested in listening to our voices? We're a non-human species capable of communicating with them. Aren't we exactly what humans are looking for? The universe is so vast that intelligent life must have surely arisen many times. The universe is also so old that even one technological species would have time to expand and fill the galaxy. Yet there is no sign of life anywhere except on Earth. Humans call this the Fermi paradox. One proposed solution to the Fermi paradox is that intelligent species actively try to conceal their presence to avoid being targeted by hostile invaders. Speaking as a member of a species that has been driven nearly to extinction by humans, I can attest that this is a wise strategy. So attest means agree. Right? So the parrot agrees that staying silent in the presence of humans is a good strategy. It makes sense to remain quiet and to avoid attracting attention. The Fermi paradox is sometimes known as the Great Silence. The universe ought to be a cacophony, which means a jarring mixture of noises. So it's a cacophony, a large mixture of voices, but instead it is disconcertingly quiet. So for those of you that are confused about the words here, what the narrator is trying to say is that the universe should be extremely loud. It should be full of life because it's so old, but it is really eerily quiet. All right, continue reading. It says, some humans theorize that intelligent species go extinct before they can expand into outer space. If they're correct, then the hush of the night sky is the silence of a graveyard. Hundreds of years ago, my kind was so plentiful that the Rio Abajo forest in Puerto Rico resounded with our voices. Now we're almost gone. Soon this rainforest may be as silent as the rest of our universe. So again, here we have some imagery right here. It's saying that the hush of the night sky, well, I guess it's not imagery, but this is figurative language here. The hush of the night sky is the silence of a graveyard. What they're trying to say here is that, sure, even if intelligent life occurred at some point, maybe they all went extinct. So the reason why we don't hear anything is because everything out there is dead. And then the narrator draws a parallel to that because it's a parrot. Obviously, parrot species are endangered. A lot of them have been killed out. So it's saying, well, just how space could be a graveyard full of all these dead aliens or these dead species, so is the rainforest, right? Now it's silent because all my fellow birds have been killed off. All right, continuing to read. It says, there was an African gray parrot named Alex. He was famous for his cognitive abilities, famous amongst humans, that is. A human researcher named Irene Peppenberg spent 30 years studying Alex. She found out that not only did Alex know the words for shapes and colors, he actually understood the concepts of shape and color. Many scientists were skeptical that a bird could grasp such abstract concepts. Humans like to think they're unique, but eventually Pepperberg convinced them that Alex wasn't just repeating words, he understood what he was saying. Out of all my cousins, Alex was the one who came closest to being taken seriously as a communication partner by humans. Alex died suddenly when he was relatively young. The evening before he died, Alex said to Pepperberg, "You be good. I love you." If humans are looking for a connection with a non-human intelligence, what more can they ask than that? Or what more can they ask for than that? Every parrot has a unique call that it uses to identify itself. Biologists refer to this as the parrot's contact call. In 1974, astronomers used Akaribo to broadcast a message into outer space intended to demonstrate human intelligence. That was humanity's contact call. In the wild, parrots address each other by name. One bird imitates another's contact call to get the bird's attention. If humans ever detect the Akaribo message being sent back to Earth, they will know someone is trying to get their attention. Parrots are vocal learners. We can learn to make new sounds after we've heard them. It's an ability that very few animals possess. A dog may understand dozens of commands, but it will never do anything but bark. Humans are vocal learners too. We have that in common. So humans and parrots share a special relationship with sound. We don't simply cry out, we pronounce, we enunciate. Perhaps that's why humans built Arecibo the way they did. A receiver doesn't have to be a transmitter, but Arecibo is both. It's an ear for listening and a mouth for speaking. Humans have lived alongside parrots for thousands of years, and only recently have they considered the possibility that we might be intelligent. I suppose I can't blame them. We parents used to think that humans weren't very bright. It's hard to make sense of a behavior that's so different from yours. But parrots are more similar to humans than any extraterrestrial species will be, and humans can observe us up close. They can look us in the eye. How do they expect to recognize an alien intelligence if all they can do is eavesdrop from 100 light years away? So essentially what this text is switched to now is it's showing how, or the parrot, who's the narrator here, is trying to prove that parrots are also equally intelligent, right? And they're kind of poking fun at the fact that humans are, listening in using this observatory. They're listening into sound waves that are thousands and thousands and millions of miles and light years away from us, but they're not able to understand that parrots themselves are intelligent. And what the parrot is trying to say here is that, well, we actually share a lot in common, but humans just don't understand that. They can't see past that. All right, let's keep on reading. It says that it's no coincidence that aspiration means both hope and the act of breathing. When we speak, we use breath in our lungs to give our thoughts a physical form. The sounds we make are simultaneously our intentions and our life force. I speak, therefore I am. Vocal learners, like parrots and humans, are perhaps the only ones who fully comprehend the truth of this. There's a pleasure that comes with shaping sounds with your mouth. It's so primal and visceral, which means instinctive. So it's so instinctive, it's so innate, it's so natural to us that throughout their history, humans have considered the activity a pathway to the divine, right? Speaking to us, using our mouth to make noises is so natural, so satisfying to us that we believe that it's a pathway for a higher order, for gods, for something that's divine. Pythagorean mystics, which are ancient Greek believers, right? People in ancient Greece, believed that vowels represented the music of spheres, enchanted to draw power from them. Pentecostal Christians believe that when they speak in tongues, they're speaking the language used by angels in heaven. Brahmin Hindus believe that by reciting mantras, they're strengthening the building blocks of reality. Only a species of vocal learners would ascribe, which means give credit to, such an importance to sound in their mythologies. We parrots appreciate that. According to Hindu mythology, the universe was created with a sound, Om. It is a syllable that contains within it everything that ever was and everything that will ever be. When Arecibo telescope is pointed at the space between the stars, it hears a faint hum. Astronomers call that the cosmic microwave background. It's the residual, meaning remaining or leftover, radiation of the Big Bang, the explosion that created the universe 14 billion years ago. But you can also think of it as a barely audible reverberation, which means echo. So it's a barely audible, meaning that it's really hard to hear, echo of that original Om. That syllable was so resonant that the night sky will keep vibrating for as long as the universe exists. So here we're drawing a parallel between something that's in real life, right? The actual background radiation of the universe and a sound that Hindu Brahmin think or believe created the universe, right? When Arecibo is not listening to anything else, it hears the voice of creation, which is again this Om, right? This sound that people believe contains everything inside of it, right? The entire universe inside of those two letters. We Puerto Rican parrots have our own myths. They're simpler than human mythology, but I think humans would take pleasure from them. Alas, our myths are being lost as my species dies out. I doubt that the humans will have deciphered our language before we're gone. So the extinction of my species doesn't just mean the loss of a group of birds. It's also the disappearance of our language, our rituals, our traditions. It's the silencing of our voice. Human activity has brought my mankind to the brink of extinction, but I don't blame them for it. They didn't do so maliciously, which means they didn't do so out of harm, right? To be malicious is to do something bad with the intention of doing something bad. What the bird is trying to say here is that it was an accident. They just weren't paying attention. And humans create such beautiful myths. What imaginations they have. Perhaps that's why their aspirations are so immense. Again, remember, aspirations means goals and hopes. Look at Arecibo. Any species who can build such a thing must have a greatness within them. My species probably won't be here for much longer. It's likely that we'll die before our time and join the great silence. But before we go, we are sending a message to humanity. We just hope the telescope of Arecibo will enable them to hear it. The message is this: be good, I love you. Right? So this last line is a callback to what the gray parrot said to the human, right? So this was his last word to her, and that was the only parrot that was thought to, be intelligent enough to communicate with us. So again, this is a callback, and it should remind you that the main point, what the narrator is trying to get at here, is that parrots are just as intelligent as humans. They're intelligent life that isn't millions of light years away, but actually on Earth, and that humans should try harder and not listen from within space, but to actually listen to what's around them. All right? And that's pretty much it. So if I were to kind of describe the organization of this passage, we start off by describing the great silence, right? Theories as to why humans haven't found other life forms around them. Either other life forms in space are avoiding them, or other life forms in space have just died out. Then we start talking about how parrots are intelligent, how they can speak, how they also appreciate voice, how they have their own stories, and how humans have never really appreciated or seen that, except with Alex the parrot. Okay, and then we start to, again, see more and more similarities between humans and parrots, right? They both believe that sound is powerful. They both believe that sound is essential for life. Okay, and there's many myths around sound and the role it plays within our world. And finally, it turns back here where the parrot describes how its species are dying out and that humans are unable to realize that they're an intelligent life force, and that they hope that humans could listen into the earth to realize this. And that's pretty much the end of this passage. So now we can go ahead and start answering questions. So number 1 asks us, the Fermi paradox in line 10 explains why blank. All right, so let's go ahead and let's remind ourselves what the Fermi paradox is. I've already underlined it when I was reading through this passage. It was right here. Okay, and whenever they ask you about something that's in a specific line, I like to just read whatever's before and whatever's after the line. All right, so what's before this line is this very small paragraph, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It says that the universe is so vast that intelligent life must have surely arisen multiple times. The universe is also so old that even one technological species would have had time to expand and fill the galaxy. Yet, there is no sign of life anywhere except on Earth. Humans call this the Fermi paradox. Okay, so a paradox is a word that's kind of used to describe a situation that shouldn't make sense. Right? The universe is 14 billion years old. That's an immense amount of time. So even if there was one technologically advanced species, in 14 billion years, it should have advanced and spread across the universe. But for some reason, only humans exist in the universe. Okay, so it's a situation that seemingly doesn't make sense, but has happened either way, which is why it's called a paradox. All right? So that's what the Fermi paradox is describing, right? It's why other intelligent life forms aren't there. Okay? So let's look at whatever answer choice kind of sums that up. So is the Fermi paradox explaining why the age of the universe cannot be determined? No, that's false, right? The age of the universe is 14 billion years. The universe is 14 billion years old. We know that because if you read it, it says it right here. The Big Bang was the explosion that created the universe 14 billion years ago. So we do know when the universe happened or started, was created. 2 says the Fermi paradox explains why the Arecibo experiment has not succeeded. And this is true. The Arecibo experiment is essentially a big ear to hear out for other intelligent life forms in space. It's a space observatory, and the parrot describes it as a giant ear, meaning that we use it to listen out into the messages that intelligent life could be sending to Earth. But that observatory hasn't gained any results, right? We haven't heard anything back from space, which means that clearly space has to be empty and there can't be any other intelligent life forms out there. So the Fermi paradox, saying that, the universe is so large but there's no life in it, is literally explaining why this giant space telescope that we use to search for life in the universe doesn't work. Because guess what? There's no life out there, as stated by this paradox. Okay, choice 3 was never stated in describing the Fermi paradox, so it can't be true. And 4, some planets could support intelligent life. If some planets could have supported intelligent life, then the Fermi paradox wouldn't say that humans are the only intelligent life out there. As a matter of fact, if planets could support intelligent life, then in the 14 billion years that have passed in this universe, they would have already been able to advance and spread across the universe, except they haven't. And as a result, the Arecibo experiment has not succeeded because there's nothing for us to listen and detect. No other species here. Right, number 2 asks, the figurative language in line 19 suggests that intelligent extraterrestrials do what? Let's go back and let's read line 19. Okay, so right here. Line 19 is right here. It says, if they're correct, then the hush of the night sky is the silence of a graveyard. And I think I touched on this when I was reading this passage, but let's go ahead and let's read the sentence before it so we get the full context. All right. It says the Fermi paradox is sometimes known as the great silence. The universe ought to be a cacophony or a mixture of noises, but instead it is extremely quiet or disconcertingly quiet. Some humans theorize that intelligent life or intelligent species go extinct before they can expand into outer space. If they're correct, then the hush of the night sky is the silence of a graveyard. Obviously, the night sky isn't a graveyard. This is figurative language. You're comparing something real to something that isn't really real, right? To kind of drive home a message. So it's saying that the silence of the night sky is a result of the death or the extinction of any possibly intelligent life forms out there. Okay, so that's the goal of this figurative language. It's just a pretty way of saying that the only reason that everything is so quiet in space is because everything is dead there, or everything that was there is no longer alive. And that's obviously going to be choice 3, right? The fact that everything in outer space is already dead or has already died means that intelligent extraterrestrials, essentially aliens, life from Earth, extraterrestrials, have missed the opportunity to connect with humans. They're dead. How can you connect with something that's dead? You can't. You can't communicate with something that's dead, right? As a result, because they died, they missed the opportunity to interact with us. Okay? Remember, this is talking about a graveyard, meaning that someone is dead, right? The species are gone, they've gone extinct. So it's not the fact that they prefer or they don't prefer to interact with us, they don't exist anymore. All right? So choice 1 is out. Choice 2 is also out because, again, it's not that they don't have any reason, they have no life. They've gone extinct, okay? So that doesn't make any sense either. And 4, it's not about relating to humans. Sure, if they were alive, maybe they could relate, but they're not. All right, so number 3 says Alex's death in lines 33 and 34 is expressed using which literary device, okay? So let's look at it. Lines 33 to 34. This is 31, 32, 33. It says that Alex died suddenly when he was still relatively young. The evening before he had died, Alex said to Pepperberg, "You be good, I love you." And that's the end of this, 34 and 35. Or 33 and 34, sorry. That's the end. So he just says to Pepperberg, "You be good, I love you." And they used quotes here, which is important. So what type of figurative language is that in? Or what type of literary device is that? Well, that's obviously going to be an anecdote. An anecdote is a short story. What the parrot just told you here was a short story about Alex. Don't believe me? Well, it's a story. You get a message from it. Alex used to be a parrot that was smart, and, he died and he told his care handler, "I love you," or "You be good, I love you." That's a short story. All right? You can also hear or see that these other answer choices don't really make sense. A simile is a comparison that uses like or as. So if someone is really fast, you can say, "Oh, she's fast as lightning," or "as fast as lightning." So choice 2 is wrong because a metaphor is a comparison without using like or as. So it's the opposite of a simile. Instead of saying she was as fast as lightning, you could say her laughter was a melody. Okay, so obviously her laughter isn't a melody. She is laughing, but you're comparing it to something else. It's a metaphor. Metaphor is a comparison without like or as. There was no comparison there, right? They literally just told us what the parrot had said to his handler. Okay, and choice 3 is wrong because an allegory is a story or a poem or a picture that could be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning or a moral. Okay, so an allegory has a moral behind it. In this case, the death of Alex is not an allegory because it wasn't meant to be interpreted as having a different meaning. When you have an allegory, it's written so that it has a meaning that you have to get from it. She, the parrot in this case, was just giving the example of Alex's death, telling the story of Alex's death, which is why it's an anecdote. Okay, it's a short story. Number 4 says lines 39 through 44 suggest that extraterrestrials may do what? All right, so 39 through 34. Let's go ahead and let's scroll for those. All right, 39 through 44, that's 41, 42, 43, 44, so up to here. In 1974, astronomers used Arecibo to broadcast a message into outer space intended to demonstrate human intelligence. That was humanity's contact call. In the wild, parrots address each other by names. One bird imitates another contact call to get another bird's attention. If humans ever detect the Arecibo message being sent back to Earth, they will know someone is trying to get their attention. Okay? So what we're saying here is that, again, this does two things. Number one, it shows how humans and parrots are similar. We both use names. And number two, it shows us how we've tried to communicate with life outside of there. We sent a signal through this observatory out into space. And if we get a signal back, that means that species is communicating in the same form as we are, because they sent the message in the same format as we sent them a message. Because there's only one format that the observatory can receive, right? It's usually just like a radio wave. So again, if they're sending a radio wave back, that means that they're trying to communicate the same way that we're trying to communicate to them. Much like a contact call is the way that someone gets someone else's attention by calling them a name, right? Or they're using their name. So which one of these choices reflects that? And that's obviously going to be choice 4, right? If the extraterrestrials communicate back to us, they're mimicking the communications coming from Earth, right? We can only detect with Arecibo whatever Arecibo has sent out. So if they're sending us a message, they're mimicking what we sent them, right? A contact call is someone mimicking your name to get your attention. So the parrot compared this attempt to a contact call. So he's saying, oh yeah, if extraterrestrials communicate back to us, it's as if they're using our contact call, which means that they're mimicking what our name is, or they're mimicking the way that we communicate. Because remember, a contact call is a unique way of saying your own name, right? It's a unique calling. So number 5 says in line 64, the word primal most nearly means which one of these words? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's read line 64. It says that there's a pleasure that comes with shaping sounds with your own mouth. It's so primal and instinctive, right? Because this is the definition. It's so primal and instinctive that throughout their history, humans have considered the active pathway of divine, right? So what they're saying here is that speaking and using your mouth to create noises to communicate with others is instinctive to us, and it's primal. And throughout our history, we've considered it to be a pathway to something bigger. So if it's primal to us and it's instinctive to us and we've been doing it throughout our history, that clearly has to mean that it's natural to us. Okay? If something is instinctive, right, you're born with it. That's natural. You're born with something that's natural. Okay? It's not unknowable. If we were unable to make sounds, I wouldn't be communicating to you guys. All right? If it was deceptive, well, that doesn't really make sense, right? Why would it be deceptive to make noises with your mouth? If it was deceptive, would we be doing it throughout history? No. If something is an instinct to you, if that is your instinct to do something, it's natural for you. All right? Number 6 says, lines 67 through 76 show the historical blank. Okay, so 67 through 76, let's go ahead and let's read that. Okay, so this is 66, 67. So Pythagorean mystics believed that the vowels represented the music of the spheres and chanted to draw power from them. Pentecostal Christians believe that when they speak in tongues, they're speaking the language used by the angels in heaven. Brahmin Hindus believe that by reciting mantras, they are strengthening the building blocks of reality. Only a species of vocal learners would credit such importance to sound in their mythologies. We parrots appreciate that. So what this part is trying to say is trying to give an examples of how humans have considered sound a pathway to the divine, which in this case is a pathway to something bigger. We use our voices, we use our sound to communicate with, gods, or we use sound to communicate to bigger things that are bigger than life, right? Things that control our existence as humans, whether it's a god or something else. All right, so let's see which other answer choice agrees with that. So we look through these choices, it's going to be 2, right? It shows the historical connection between vocalization and spiritual expression. Spiritual expression is your belief systems, right? It's your belief that there's something bigger out there or that there's something controlling us, right? If there's multiple different cultures that use sound and use songs as a means of communicating with gods or something bigger, that means that they're using or believing that there's a connection between vocalization, literally using your vocal cords by making sound, and spiritual expressions, right? Choice 1 is wrong because they're usually, all of these, it's not a similarity between ancient and modern creation beliefs, right? No one said here that, oh, yeah, the universe was created by a sound. That comes later, okay? But here, nothing here says anything about, oh, Earth was created from sound, so it can't be choice 1. Choice 3 says, shared ways people celebrate important events. This has nothing to do about celebration. No one said anything here about celebrating anything. Right, in choice 4, the role of vocal performances in preserving cultural traditions. Again, they didn't say anything about preserving cultural traditions. They said that using sound at some point was a cultural tradition. But again, they didn't say anything about preserving it. All right? Number 7 asks, as used in line 81, resonant means what? Okay, let's look at line 81. It says, it says, that syllable was so resonant that the night sky will keep vibrating for as long as the universe exists. Okay, so let's read before this so that we get a better idea of what's happening here. All right, so it says that according to Hindu mythology, the universe was created with a sound Om. It is a syllable that contains within it everything that ever was and everything that will ever be. When the Arecibo telescope is pointed at the space between the stars, it hears a faint hum. Astronomers call that the cosmic microwave background. It's the residual radiation of the Big Bang, the explosion created by the universe 14 billion years ago. But you can also think of it as a barely audible reverberation, which means echo. It's a forever echo that's going on forever, of that original That syllable was so resonant that the sky will keep vibrating for as long as it exists. So this word resonant is showing how powerful, how present, how incredible this Om was. It's so incredible that even 14 billion years after this Om was made, after someone made this sound, you can still hear it in our universe. Okay, so it's so powerful. So resonant kind of has the same, or it's conveying the idea that this sound has perpetuated throughout history, right? Because of how special it is. So a word that's used to describe how powerful something is, or how special something is, or how something is able to, keep on going for so long is rich, right? If something is rich in flavor, there's a lot of that flavor, right? It's not short on flavor. Okay, if a sound is rich, that means it can fill up a large amount of space for a very long time. All right, it's not harsh. No one says it's a harsh sound. Harsh is a negative. It's a negative adjective, right? No one's saying that this sound is negative. Okay, just the sound of the creation of the universe. Okay, so it can't be harsh. It's not startling either, because guess what? They would have described it as scary or as startling. And it's not muffled, because if the sound was muffled, we wouldn't be able to hear it using this telescope. All right, so number 8 says, according to the narrator, the voice of creation in line 83 is a result of what? Well, obviously, it's the result of the Big Bang. We were just talking about it here, right? This that we're hearing is the background microwave radiation, right? We already said that, or we saw that over here. Astronomers call that the cosmic microwave background. It's the leftover radiation from the Big Bang. All right, so this sound is the residual, meaning leftover, radiation of the Big Bang. That's where it has to come from. Number 9 asks, which statement best represents the central idea of this text? So essentially what this parrot has been saying this entire text is that parrots are just as unique and just as smart as humans. Humans simply haven't been able to realize that. We're searching for life in space when intelligent life is all around us. And if we were just to point this telescope, this space telescope, at the ground, if we just focused on whatever was going around in our own environment, we would realize that parrots are just as smart as us, right? Parrots should be considered a intelligent life form, but we're out here wasting our time looking at the stars when we should be focusing on the parrots. So the central idea here, what the parrot was doing by bringing up how, humans have contact calls the same way that parrots do, how parrots have mythologies the same way that humans do, how parrots believe that, the sound and creating your own voice and understanding words is their ability to do that is similar to humans' ability to do that. What he's trying to say here is that parrots are more similar to humans than any extraterrestrial species will ever be. Okay, that's the main central idea of this text, right? Parrots have already been here. Parrots are able to understand language. We're able to communicate with humans. They have their own stories. They have their own names. They have their own mythologies. They're just as smart as any extraterrestrial species are, but humans can't realize that. Okay, the text isn't about the Arecibo Observatory. It's just used as an example of how we're looking into the stars for species that aren't there when we should be looking at parrots, right? It's not about appreciating the space telescope. Okay, it's also not about how birds are losing their numbers, right? This isn't about how parrots are going extinct. If this text was about parrots going extinct, guess what? They wouldn't just get a paragraph towards that. All right, they wouldn't just get lines 90 through 94 talking about it. The bigger part of this text would be dedicated to talking about how they were going extinct. Okay, the parrot, who's literally the narrator, would probably speak more about, oh, by the way, my species is going extinct, for more than 4 lines if it was the main idea here. Right? For something to be a central idea of the text, it has to continually be brought up. Okay, or it has to be an idea that the paragraph or the whole text is building towards. So that is the end of this section. That's all of the questions that are associated with the fiction passage. Again, this video is a part of a bigger series where I'm going to go over every single passage here. So the videos going over the poem passage and the non-fiction passage have already been uploaded. You can check them out in the description of this video. I hope you guys learned something, and I hope you have a nice day.